Was the deciding factor in saying, I'm going to leave here and I'm going to go to Michael Waltrip?
Well, it was, first of all, the hardest thing that I'd ever done personally in my life. That was an extremely hard, conversation, even thought to have. I mean, this man handed me everything that I got.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go on to the ball. California's Kevin Harvick does it. Straight making right there. You're the man.
Welcome to Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour, presented by NASCAR on Fox. And today we have one of my favorite guests that we've probably booked so far, and that is Clint Bowyer. Clint and I have been around each other for a long time, spent the half the season together in the booth this year, and we are really looking forward to getting this interview started. So I hope you enjoy this interview with Clint. Here we are, and this is probably even more awkward than standing in the booth with you during the races for the first time. Now I'm sitting here having to interview you, but we planned this out because of the fact that we both tried to do something that we used to do this weekend, and that was go race. I know how mine went. Tell me how your weekend went at the truck race.
Well, that just goes to show you that, again, you've heard me say this before when people ask about our jobs and the way we act. I said, you do realize we had to wear a helmet to make a living, right? I mean, you do realize that. So we're not very smart anyway. And that being said, we didn't set ourselves up for a good opportunity at a podcast, given the weekend that we both had. I blew it, bud. That's what I did. I completely blew it. Went to a fun race. I'll tell you how bad it was. I got home. We were on our way home yesterday, and Cash goes, "Way to go, Dad. You had a pretty good record at Nashville Super Speedway. Boy, you just blew that." Thanks, son.
What was the hardest thing for you to get used to?
The preparation was obviously drastically different. I was not at all ready for that. That is, the game's changed. Went to the simulator and spent a couple hours in there. And honestly, that has evolved a lot since, the 4 years that I've been in it. I was quite surprised in how far that has come as far as the setups. I mean, literally, they were starting down a path where back when I was in, I was like, listen, guys, we'll go there and we'll get some situational awareness, some visuals, and I'll be ready to go. But do not put anything into anything I say in this speaker, in this simulator, because I don't know how to correlate that to the real thing. And I told Patty that this week. But that being said, we were really tight in the simulator. Sorry. I told you he's at the lake. The dog's barking. But
that's perfect.
We were extremely tight in that simulator. I could not get that thing to turn. Everything you did just would not roll the middle. So he went down the path of starting to change the setups quite a bit, and it answered a call in that simulator. And I was like, all right, well, what do we believe in here, right? And we freed it up too much. It was the end of the day. I think he took some nose weight out of it, and as soon as we got it off the truck and on the racetrack, I knew we were in trouble. It was really wicked loose getting into the corner, and old Clint, you get him loose in, he's in big trouble. I can handle the throttle up off and keep it underneath of me, but if I'm loose in, I am in trouble, and that is the case. And again, working with Patty over the years, the thing that I do love about him is he doesn't quit trying. He just continued to swing the bat each and every chance that we got, and moved the needle quite a bit, but just wasn't near enough. Driver messed up. I knew going in, Kevin, that it was probably going to be the fundamentals that were going to be the toughest obstacle to overcome, and it was. Caught me off guard. You asked me what caught me off guard. The lack of horsepower. We ran those Ilmor motors and those SRX cars, and I felt like they had gobs of horsepower. You forget that those cars are way lighter than those trucks are. I just kind of, like back then in those cars, you could floor it at any given time and blow the tires off of it.
Right.
I leave the pit box, and I was a little bit gingerly with it, knowing that, back in the day, the juice was not doing that. Don't John force it out of the pit box, but slowly walk it out of there and keep the tires rolling and get to your lights as fast as you can. As soon as I I floored it because I was a little bit nervous about it. So I just floored it. And when I released the clutch, that thing went, whoa, I was in big trouble. So I killed it. Then lack of timing in this truck, Kevin, I didn't even know where the damn ignition switch is. So I couldn't find the starter. I mean, it was like, it went from bad to worse that fast. Flip the switch, restart. They stack up in front of me, junk the truck, and the rest is history.
So what did you, let's go back to practice. What did you think of the short practice and then go right into qualifying and that process? How was that to get used to everything? Obviously you didn't know where the switches were, you had that, but that was in the race. I can't even imagine what it was like for that 20-minute practice. Was your heart beating? Because I know on Thursday my heart was beating pretty fast when I had to go out on the racetrack to practice.
Well, because of, ins and outs of practice and trying to get the truck underneath them and getting into the corner, again, I was caught off guard right off the bat. And we were frantically trying to get that under control to get me in the corner, because we all know as racers, if you can't get in the corner, you might as well give up. Like, fix that first and foremost and then go to work on the rest of it. And nothing was really changing that much. So 20 minutes of practice was shot, boom, before you know it. Here I am going to qualifying, and they're handing me SMT data and all this stuff. I'm like, guys, I was scrambling so much on my entry, trying to get the truck underneath them and trying to find an arc that I could get away with, right? I mean, when they're loose in, you can't really get that big arc that you need at Nashville. Well, now you're in trouble. So now I'm trying to gauge, trying to in the back of my mind think, all right, well, where am I going to enter this corner? And this spotter, Tyler Green, showed me all this SMT data, man. You're leaning a little bit too deep. You're not here. You're not there. I'm like, guys, I don't even have my reference points down because I haven't even got that far yet. Like 20 minutes of practice is nothing to your point. And I hadn't even known, I don't even have my lifting part, my lifting marks figured out yet. So now we're going out to qualify. And I told myself, don't get loose in and overcome, but you got to pick it up. I mean, I needed to pick up 7, 8 tenths. I knew the truck could do a little bit, but I knew I had to pick up too. So I buried it off in the corner as much as my heart would stand. And it kind of came out for me in 1 and 2, where 3 was my problem, right? We were losing a 3 big time. So now I'm thinking, oh crap, going down the back straightaway. You have a conversation with yourself. It seems like it was a 3-minute conversation. It was about 3 seconds, but I got off into 3 too hard and too low, which I was doing on purpose to try to keep the truck underneath of me, and ended up, biff in that corner too. So nothing went right. Timing is an essence in that deal.
Well, I think that the biggest thing that I learned over the weekend racing the super late model race, and I went down to Pensacola. I'd never been to Pensacola, to Five Flag Speedway, and I'm listening to driver intros, and it's like, here for the first time is Kevin Harvick, and they get to Bubba Pollard, and they're on the pole for tonight, looking for his 26th win at Five Flag Speedway. I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, what have I got myself into here? And I learned really quickly that I needed to race more. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna run a few more races. Did you get the bug enough to say, hey, I want to do a few more?
I left there, my friend, a good friend of mine, which was a big reason why I did it. Let's face it, Nashville's always been special to me. I mean, since I retired from full-time racing, all my friends live in Nashville. So, and by the way, I didn't meet them through racing. I met them through friends and friendships and music and stuff like that. So they had never watched me race, right? They'd never seen me compete before. So they were all there, and he asked me, he's like, that was cool to watch, but damn, man, now what do we do? And I was like, well, I can't go out like that. I can promise you that. I've got enough of the bug that I have to go back and redeem myself, because I just can't suck that bad. And then that being said, I also told him, I will tell you this, I remember why I quit. I hate that feeling. There's nothing worse as a competitor of being that pissed off leaving a racetrack. And my wife goes, now you got your fix. This is the Clint I hate. I hated this guy too. And I was like, we'll get over it tomorrow. So I went downtown and went out for a little while, and it got worse.
You need to do something like I did. You need to do something that's got way less pressure, and then there's a beer drinking session at the racetrack after the race. It's more of the social short track racing scene. You got all that pressure with all the big lights and the big racetracks and the big sponsors and all that stuff at the NASCAR track. You got to go. We got to take you somewhere where you can just do it out in the middle of nowhere like Pensacola or whatever short track that you choose. We got to find you a car to race that's just more fun. The whole atmosphere is different with less pressure. What do you think?
Well, I wanted to go down that path too. So I did that for a lot of reasons, multitude of reasons, and one being I wanted to know what that felt like again. It's been 20 years since I was at Nashville Superspeedway. Those tires felt like basketballs out there. I mean, the hardest feeling I've ever felt in my life. So much harder than anything I ever remember. Like even I remember retiring and feeling like our tires were way too hard. The construction of them, they were extremely hard. It felt like they were steel balls on the rims. Like that's how, just unforgiving they were. And the lack of horsepower. Those guys are in a box, a tight window. We hear them complain about it all the time. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of it. And there's that window of, it just puts you in such a box of, all right, you can't get in the corner this much too far because now the car the front end won't set. You drive through the grip in the tires and the front tires, they'll take off up the racetrack, or that truck being loose, it'll swap ends on you in just 2 seconds. So you're stuck in that box on your entry speed. All right, so I can fix that. Back in the day, you back the corner up. I'm loose in, I'm gonna back the corner up. I'm gonna keep this thing rolling through the middle. I'm gonna throttle through the middle, make that straightaway longer, and I'll beat you the other end. My lap times will be faster. That is out the window too. Now you back the corner up, you pick the gas up, you drive a push into it, about knock the wall down on the exit. You're just stuck in such a tight window that is very, very frustrating, especially when you get mired back there in traffic. You get outside. Once I knocked myself out of I think I was running like 8th or 9th when the pit came, or when we finally pitted, and I messed that up. But once I got back there in traffic, it didn't matter. And you watch those races back, watch yesterday's race. Once Chase Elliott got back in the back, or Christopher Bell, he led dominated the race. He got back there and ended up wrecking in 5 laps. We have to be mindful of the product, and we got lucky with that race yesterday. We did get lucky. I love that market. I love that event, but we got extremely lucky with that race. Have to figure out how you go to Kansas and that package works so well at a racetrack like Kansas Speedway or Charlotte, like some of these mile and a halves have been. Then you go to a place like that and it just doesn't work. I don't have all the answers to that, but somebody does, and there's some validation there that we need to understand.
Well, we all like horsepower, and I think we all agree on the horsepower piece of it needing to be higher. But let's get off of the serious stuff. I want to talk about.
No, that was me venting right there. That felt real good. You told me about these podcasts.
Look, I'm going to save you from yourself right here. We're gonna go down a different path right now. So we see a lot of what you've done in the race car, but tell us how you got to where you did in your career. Where did you start? Because you started on motorcycles, and I don't know that a lot of people remember your story. Tell me your path to how you got to Cup, where you started, and how you got there in a brief segment here.
Well, let me try to condense it. All right, go to Stewart-Haas Racing back in it for the last, when we were there, when I was there for 4 years or whatever. You go inside the door and everybody's childhood racing pictures are on the wall in black and white. Kevin Harvick's up here in a number 8 go-kart. Tony Stewart's over in his go-kart with square wheels on it and an open face leather helmet. We were all up there. Danica was up there in black and white, like everybody in go-karts. Not me. I was on a PW50, at Loretta Lynn's Amateur National or Ponca City, Oklahoma. I did grow up racing motocross. That was our dream. That was what I wanted to do, what I thought I was going to do. My brother and I, all 3 of us, I have 2 brothers, all 3 of us raced motocross. Casey quit when we got in high school and he started playing basketball. He was a damn weapon, boy. He drove through it. He rode completely. Says he lost his brakes, went over a bull corner, which was a metal machine shed Morton building behind, and went clear through the steel wall. Gets out, he's all bloody. My dad finds boy, what in the hell? You're done. how did you do that? You know, he hit like 12 feet up in the air and went through this guy's hay barn. So Casey quit, and then Andy was starting to turn pro. He was 2 years older than me, and I was kind of stuck, 16-year-old kid, starting to get on. I just went off the 80s, right, and getting on the big bikes, and I was burnt out. As funny as that sounds, and all the years of racing and all the NASCAR stuff that went back in the day when we would test and sponsor here, sponsor there, like we were busy every single day of the week for our first probably 10 years of our career, right? At least.
Yeah.
And I never got burnt out on that, but I did of traveling in that car, driving down the road. I remember vividly my dad, we go to 59th and Douglas on Friday night in Oklahoma City, right next to the Air Force Base, race with Robbie Raynard and all the guys around the Midwest, and we could compete with them. My brother was running at the top at his game, and I was pretty fast down there. We'd leave there and go to Lake Whitney, Texas, 13-hour run all the way back home. Andy and I'd wake up in a parking lot at grade school or middle school back then, and it was time to walk in the door. We were literally at school. My dad had drove all night, which takes you back to our dads and how we got done, racing. Now we're dads and our sons are racing, but there's no way in hell that I'm driving 13 hours through the middle of the night to get my son back to school. We're not that tough, I guess. I don't know what it is. Tough, dumb, something.
We know better.
I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
Yes, I always say, I'm like, Dad, what in the hell were you thinking? You were nuts. But he was as ate up with it as we were. And that's what we did. I was 16 years old working at a Goodyear tire store, lost as a kid, didn't really know what to do. I was kind of burnt out on that. And my boss went and bought I think it was a 72, 74, the big Monte Carlo with the huge front end on it, the ugliest Monte Carlo they ever built. And we start building a street stock car. After work, we start building a street stock car. We'd go to the races. He'd blow up. We'd go to the junkyard, get another motor, put his intake carburetor on it, go to the track, blow up. It was a constant cycle. But my God, was it fun. We'd go to those dirt tracks, boy. There'd be a hell of a wreck, a hell of a race, and a hell of a party afterwards. And I'm like, this is pretty good. I think I want to try this. So that's
hold
exactly
on.
what we did. I went home and drug a 78 Camaro. I started in ponies. Yeah.
You have not driven a car at all until
What?
you're 16. You've never driven a car until you're 16.
No, California boy. In Kansas, you can start driving at 14.
No. I'm talking about a race car. I understand that you could have driven on the street, but you've never raced a car.
Hell no.
I did not know that.
No chance.
Huh. So 16,
No.
you start. All right,
So
we'll
my
keep
dad
going.
was off. I actually built a pony stock car first. Me and Muffler Man Don at Floyd's Auto Body he built me a roll cage, and I'm pretty sure it was out of muffler tubing. It wasn't the correct certification because we built it pretty damn fast. And my mom and I, it was a Chevette I built out of my dad. My dad owned a towing service, right? So it was a car that was impounded. I went back there, the damn thing would start and run. So I took it to the body shop. Muffler Man Don put a roll cage in it. My mom and I took Dad's rollback and we went to Yates Center, Kansas. I go there. This thing still had the radio, the dash, everything in it. The windows, I'd taken the windows out. I had to do that, put screens in it. But like literally, you could go down the back straightaway and turn the AC on and turn the radio on if you wanted to. So that sucked. It was the slowest piece of crap you've ever seen in your life. But somehow I managed to flip it about 17 times down the back straightaway that night. No wall at this racetrack. And they told you, all the guys like, listen, if you get over the edge, don't try to bring it back on. Don't let it drag into rocker panels. You'll roll. Like, yeah. Well, that's exactly what happened. I got over the edge and I damn barrel rolled down the back straightaway. And I remember I put a battery box. I went to Blue Stem Farm Ranch Supply, like a boat marine plastic battery box, right? And I put it in couldn't be underneath the hood for whatever reason. So I thought the passenger floorboard would be a pretty easy place to put it. It was a couple self-tapper screws and it'll stay right over there and it'll be fine. So I put this battery over there and I'm flipping down the back straightaway and just something is knocking the hell out of me in the head and I can't figure it out. finally I open my eyes, and this is how long this thing's rolling down the back straightaway. I open my eyes, and it's this battery swinging back and forth in his car and just nailing me in the head. So now I'm rolling, holding this battery like this as it's flipping down the back straightaway. Come to a stop, and like, holy crap, got it put back. Got back on the rollback. You know, it's a bad situation and a bad plan when you show up on a rollback, because that's exactly how it left, on a rollback.
Well, I don't know that I expected that street stock story.
That's how it started.
I can tell you that my street stocks, we had a street stock that we ran, and we had more fun in that dang thing. Ours was on asphalt, but that's an experience that's everybody that races needs to go through. They need to go through a street stock career. So you go through your street stock career, and somehow you wind up in an ARCA car, and it was at Nashville, correct? That you got noticed. So whose ARCA car was that, and how did you get noticed and recognized by Richard Childress?
So let me condense this down real quick. I so obviously went back after that car was junk, built a street stock car out of a guy's. Literally, it was in a hedgerow. We drug it out of there, built a Camaro, had some luck with that, got into the dirt modified ranks. And when I did that, what I did was the smartest thing I ever did. Back then, you had the Dodge Weekly Racing Series, and that's what put me on the map. Every track we ran in the Midwest was under that NASCAR umbrella. It was a point system that was a national, a point system, which meant if I won that weekend, we had full car count at Lakeside Speedway. You'd rush home, wait for the dial tone, get online, the internet back in the day, and you would look up to the Northeast and see where Ted Christopher finished, see where all these guys finished, because that's who you were racing for the national points. I think that deal paid like $350,000. Regionally, it paid like 80 to 100 or something like that. This is back in like 2000, right? Yeah. So damn good money. And I was racing at Heartland Park. Topeka was a NASCAR track. Lakeside was a NASCAR track. And I-70 across the river was a different NASCAR track that was in a different region. So in 2002, I won. That was my first year racing asphalt. We actually won that championship that year at I-70 and Lakeside, but they were two different regions, which was just a geographically weird deal, right? Weird situation. But we won a ton of money. And the biggest thing was it gave us a lot of national exposure. That's when Nashville Speedway came about. Scott Trailer on 810 Sports Radio bought out of Kansas City, bought an MB2 Motorsports old Pontiac. That's how long ago this was. And said, man, let's figure this out. I want to see you run Nashville. This is a true story. We go over there. I took the car to the Ford body shop I was working at. Me and my painter did all the body work on it. It looked exactly like your Sonic Drive-In's car, which was probably the best idea that ever happened. I had a regional Sonic Drive-In sponsorship with Craig Abbott, which was still there at that race this weekend, right? Craig and Georgia were still there. We take this thing to Nashville and borrowed, begged, stole, whatever. But the craziest story about all of this is we were going that weekend, we get there. Scott said, we didn't know. I was like, who sets the car up or who pits it? Or like, we don't have nothing, Kevin. So my old man, my uncle, and a bunch of guys, they've got a bunch of borrowed pit crew unit. But dude, it was embarrassing. So they're pitting a car, but the guy that we picked up at the airport at Nashville showed up, and I'll never forget this. I'll never see this kid walking up and going, what in the hell? That's your guy? He had a backpack over his shoulder and a Simpson carbon fiber briefcase. That backpack had 4 springs in the back of it, and that briefcase had 4 shocks, 4 Penske shocks. Those 4 shocks and 4 springs, and a man named Trent Owens that we all know now almost won that ARCA race that day. And that's what put me on the map. Richard Childress was watching that in a rain delay in Pocono. He hired me a few weeks, short weeks after that. And that's why I came back to Nashville for the truck race and to just kind of put a period at the end of it. That was a cool racetrack for me, a cool experience. Always a good racetrack. It was my first win that I had actually won in NASCAR, a first Xfinity win. So a lot of great memories there. And as my son Cash told me and reminded me, I blew it all. with my last race there. So
Well,
come full circle, baby.
yeah. Well, we both have smart ass kids, that's for sure. And I think that as they go through their racing career, they're going to learn that it's a lot harder than they think it is. But so you go to Childress and you run, all those years. What was the tipping point to say, okay, I've been at RCR, I need to go do something different, and what was the deciding factor in saying, I'm going to leave here and I'm going to go to Michael Waltrip?
Well, it was, first of all, the hardest thing that I'd ever done personally in my life. That was an extremely hard, conversation, even thought to have. I mean, this man handed me everything that I got, and I had a lot of stuff then. I'd been there for 8-10 years and things were good. Those were the heydays.
Oh, yeah.
He gave me everything and I owed everything to him. And I knew that, and loyalty's a big thing in anybody's life. But it was frustrating. We were all, frustrated with one another. And I felt like it was time to move on. I got a couple opportunities to go to some big rides. And honestly, I thought I was landed one, and we were in talks with all the big names, all the big owners, and through a sponsorship and through a lot of wild, crazy stories, it'd be a hell of a book. But ended up having to go back to RCR, which is what put the sour note, and ultimately what I left. I mean, my departure at RCR wasn't that last year. It was 3 years prior to that. That last conversation, or that last contract that I had, 3-year contract, was not on very good terms. I left the house, but then the other girlfriend didn't work out, so I had to come back in and get back in bed with that one. It was one of those deals, and it wasn't very pleasant for either one of us, and nobody really got along. So I left. Here comes 5 Hour Energy. 5 Hour Energy came to me and said, don't really know where we're going or what you're doing, but we want to be a part of it. That's when things changed for me. I no longer had to worry about going to somebody and saying, all right, well, you're hiring me for this or whatever, and then we'll figure out the sponsors. And then you have to come back to the table. Well, we're going to give you this instead of that. All that guesswork went out the window. Those days are probably long gone, but it gave me the affordability to truly go shop around. I mean, I was the total package. Not only was I the driver, I had the sponsors in my hand too. So plug and play, here you go. Right. And that's when we went around everywhere. That's exactly what they asked me to do. Go around and we want a contract from every team you can possibly get, buddy. I got a stack of them. It's awesome stories. And that's what we did. We went around and talked to all of them again in MWR, which, by the way, was my last choice. I told my brother, I said, there's no way I'm going over there. I just watched Dale Jarrett, have trouble. Waltrip, they've struggled over there. They turned the corner, there's no question, but a lot of struggles came out of there. Everything works for a reason, and I do believe that. I think eventually you wake up and you open your eyes and you're like, why am I fighting this so hard? If I'm fighting this hard, it shouldn't be. Maybe I need to open my eyes and look into this opportunity. Called Ty Norris, went down and met with him, and immediately felt better about it. Went back to them. I said, you know what? I think that's a good idea. Let's go over there and let's do this. The best damn thing that ever happened to me. Almost won the championship that year. We got to hire a crew chief. It's the only time ever that I actually said, this is the crew chief that I wanted. My whole career, I never had an opportunity to do that. That was the time that I said, I want Brian Patty, and you get me him, we'll go out and win races. And that's exactly what we did. Yeah. We had 2 great years. Unfortunately, things didn't work out. The team shut down, but here comes another opportunity. And this is where my career really got weird. All right, Tony Stewart decides he wants to get out of the car. We don't know if this guy's going to get out this year, next year, or whatever, but we know he's already said, get somebody, because when I decide, I'm done. So they literally hired me a year ahead of time. So now I'm at a crossroads where you want me to just sit on the bench and wait a year? Like, I was probably 38 years old or something. I'm not sitting on the bench. I'm not going to go drive a truck or drive an Xfinity car or something like this. Like, what am I going to do? So that's when the Harry Scott deal came about. Again, I had 5 hours trying to keep them alive, trying to bridge the gap to get to Stewart-Haas, to the good opportunity that we were all longing for. And God almighty, what a disaster that turned out to be. I think riding it, if I had to do it again, I think I'd have just rode the bench. I'd have come over here at the lake and had me a fun year. It'd have probably prepared me the same.
That would have been. You can't do that
because I didn't learn a damn thing.
That would have been a disaster. That would have been a disaster. And I know it was a disaster, but
I probably never came back.
It would probably never come back. But I think as I look back at Stewart-Haas, obviously we had fun at Stewart-Haas, and we had fun at RCR, and everybody knows the story of us being in the booth, and by the way, we had a great time in the booth this year. But if you had to do all that again, and you know everything that you know now, what would be the team that you went and drove for?
I can tell you Hendrick.
Yeah.
It's a pretty easy answer.
Yeah. Well, I think
there's a Hendrick contract in the desk that'd have been a pretty good one to sign.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we had Brad Keselowski on the show, and he talked about the effect that Mark Martin had on his career, and he had a contract with Hendrick, and they decided to put Mark in the car, and that changed his direction. So I think a lot of these old stories that people don't know change the course of so many different careers and push things in so many different directions. And I think obviously you driving at Hendrick, or anybody driving at Hendrick, is going to give them an opportunity that it's just unique. So we got a couple minutes left, and I asked everybody
hold on, stay on that.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Stay on that real quick. Think of the difference it made in Kyle Larson.
Yeah, you're right.
Think of the difference that it made in Kyle Larson. He raced 5 years. People forget he raced 5 years in the Cup Series of NASCAR, and everybody knew you had this mound of talent, but you had to get him in the right equipment. And he finally did that. I'm happy for Chase Briscoe. That boy is on the clock, though. He is in the baddest ride you could possibly get. What the top 5 rides in the garage area, he's in. And I think he'll shine in it. I'm looking forward to watching him, but that's a lot of pressure on a young man, and he's stepped up to the plate, and let's see how hard he can swing it back.
Yeah, but when you
think
back,
that's what I love about our sport.
When you think back to Kyle Larson, though, think about this and what I just said. How it changes the course. Stewart-Haas Racing was going to hire Kyle Larson to drive that car. That's who Tony Stewart had the deal all worked out, and Ford said, absolutely not. You're not hiring Kyle Larson. And Stewart-Haas Racing is closing down, and Kyle Larson is going on to race for more championships at Hendrick. So, I think all these things that go on behind the scenes that people don't understand. All right, last question, but before we go, and I ask it to everybody, tell me about the first car that you bought and drove on the street. What was it, and where did it go?
Well, when your dad owns a towing lot and you had all these impound cars out back, you didn't really buy cars. We had to get them fixed up, and people just leave them. Like literally, just leave cars. You wouldn't believe that, whether they went to jail, whether whatever. But like his lot was always full of cars. Have to go through an auction, and I'd buy it for whatever, $100 or something. But my brother had a brown AMC Nash. Had chrome directional wheels on it, had MTX kickers in the back. This baby jammed all the way through, had vinyl top on it, just turd brown, right? He had it all the way through high school, had air shocks on it, and we used to jump the ever-living crap out of this thing on railroad tracks. I'm talking 15 feet in the air, like stuff that you'd see in the movies, and somehow this thing would land. We went to the Votech school, and you'd hit this railroad track ramp. It was the damnedest jump you've ever seen in your life. Like, if we had phones back then, we'd have been big on the internet. I can tell you that. Instagram would have been big. So I get this car back to 14. Like I told you, you can get a driver's permit, a worker's permit to drive to and from work. Well, Dad owned a towing service, so technically, if you had a radio in your car, you was on call and headed to a wreck or something. So we had that covered. I get my license. My brother picks me up. I said, "Get the hell out! I'm driving." I've been wanting to air these railroad tracks out for years. One of my dad's employees took us over there, Juan Segovia. He's in the back seat, and we line up and hit these railroad tracks. Well, old Clint hit him a little too hard. Either I hit it too hard, or we didn't have enough air in the shocks, because when we landed, all hell broke loose. Sparks, crap went flying, and oil was running out of the back of this thing as fast as you can get. I'm trying to get it down to the shop, and there's a pile of oil. It looked like a racetrack, right? I'm oiled down. We stop at the stoplight. Finally, the oil light comes on. I'm like, oh, crap. Had to shut it off. Well, you know who you have to call to come get it towed, right?
Oh, yeah.
If there was another towing company in town, I'd have called them. He came and was so pissed off. He backed up, hooked onto that thing, never left us in it. Got on it. We were in the car on a rollback and took us back. And he left. Those guys just like skedaddled out there and left me for the biggest ass chewing I've ever had in my life. And I went without a car for about a year. That was my first car. It lasted maybe 20 minutes.
I knew that your story would be like no other, and that one definitely did not disappoint. Well, go back to vacationing. I'm actually enjoying this Fox schedule. As you told me, I needed to learn how to take control and relax a little bit. But these last couple of weeks, I feel like I've done a little bit better. So enjoy your 4th of July. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us. And it's been a great year. I had fun, and I appreciate everything this year from you, man.
Man, we've had a lot of fun. It was special to have you up there. A lot of people don't realize, but we've been teammates the better part of my career. I mean, what was there? Maybe 4 or 5 years of 16 or 17, 18 years that weren't, alongside you. So think the world of you. We have a lot of fun up there in the booth. It's an important job. It's a fun job. I enjoy it, but I think it's a perfect time, right? You get down to the end of ours and your bucket is empty, so to speak, a little bit. It's hard to stay fresh each and every week. I couldn't imagine doing that for 38 weeks like some of the radio guys or some people do. I mean, we lived it inside the cars, but your job and your task specific to that given weekend a lot different than you are in the TV world. I like when NBC comes on. I learn some things from them. I see some things I love and some things that I don't care for. So they do a great job. They're our friends, right? I mean, Burton's been our teammate for probably 6 years of our careers. So I love saw Latart in the lobby before I left, but that's what I love the best about it. When they take over, I'm on vacation. I said I was leaving. I was in the lobby leaving as he's going to the racetrack. I said, well, buddy, probably going to be a lot of green flag runs today. Have fun. Wishing the best. So can't wait for next year. It'll be a lot of fun. Can't wait to see the end of the season. Things are heating up in a big way. Boy, I thought, we had another new winner, right, with Logano punching his ticket. But could you imagine if LaJoy would have won that or one of those other guys up front? That would have sure changed the playoff picture in a big way. And that's all it takes. One little thing like that, those guys running out of gas and all hell breaking loose at the end of that thing, it's all it takes. Somebody's going to punch their ticket.
Well, have a good week, man. I appreciate you taking the time.
I'm glad that you're doing these podcasts.
Thanks. I'll keep you informed.
See ya.
Bye. Well, we want to thank Clint for taking the time today. I know he's on vacation, but we don't care. We wanted to hear about his race, and we also wanted to enlighten you on a few things that most people don't know about Clint Bowyer. So I didn't even know that he hadn't driven a race car until he was 16. So hopefully you enjoyed the interview. We encourage everybody to follow us on YouTube or follow us anywhere on social media at Harvick Happy Pod, and we'll see you next week.